Hey, you. You're finally awake.
I hear you want to know about Dala's top games of 2025. Don't worry, I got you. Hey everyone, welcome back to Dala Games. We are somehow already at the end of 2025, which doesn't feel real because I'm pretty sure January was like 3 weeks ago. But hey, time is fake, the backlog is eternal, and this year was a complete mess. But at least the games were top tier. So today, I'm counting down my favorite games of 2025. These are the ones that stuck with me, made me laugh or cry, and reminded me of why I love making videos. You see, because my friends and co-hosts of the JRPG Pursuit podcast, Emily and Brandon, don't always want to hear me ramble on and on and on about games for hours. So now, I plan to make you all listen to me instead. Sorry, but also not really. And while we're here, go check out Brandon's channel, Just the Gems, and Emily's at Orbalology. They're great people, so great stuff. Also, check out our podcast, the JRPG Pursuit, where we talk about all things JRPGs. I swear it's worth your time. Anyway, we've got a beefy episode today because I just couldn't make up my mind. So this list is definitely a bit long, so bear with me. But before we dive in, we gotta talk about honorable mentions. These are the games I'm currently playing, loving, and will absolutely talk about in a future video, but I haven't quite finished them yet. And look, finishing games is apparently important when you're putting them on a top of the year list, or so I've been told, by people who actually finish things. I wish I was one of them. But here we are, so let's go through them real quick. So I've been insanely hyped for Ghost of Yotei ever since it was announced. I loved the first game and dumped so many hours into it. I'm about 10 hours into the sequel now, and yeah, I'm definitely loving it. It's everything great about the first game, just looks and plays better. Now the new protagonist is awesome, and her motivations really hit hard. I'm a sucker for a good revenge plot, so I was locked in from the start. I'll definitely share my full thoughts in a future video once I roll the credits though. Silent Hill is near and dear to my heart. I grew up with this series, and after years of waiting, we finally got something new, and man, this game is spooky in all the right ways. I'm about 8 hours in and constantly on the edge. The Japanese horror setting works so well, and half the time I don't even know what's happening, but that's kind of the point. They added some combat elements this time around, which are fine, but why? Why are the weapons breakable? I get that it adds tension, but it also adds stress, and I'm honestly just stressed enough. Still, I'm loving the experience so far, and I'm hoping the ending sticks the landing. Okay, I've been waiting for this one ever since the preview at PAX West. At first, the silent protagonist and the whole village builder angle didn't really sell me, but that demo turned me around. With all the praise it's getting, I had to jump in. I'm about 10 hours in, so I don't have a major opinion other than I'm loving it. I can already see that this game is going to drag me through an 80+ hour emotional roller coaster because it's incredibly dark, and hopefully I can survive long enough to talk about it in a future video. And last but definitely not least, it's Metroid Prime 4. Now the discourse around this game has been kind of wild, and I'm trying my best to avoid all that and just enjoy it. I'm about 20 hours in, and here are my thoughts so far. The game feels exactly like you want a Metroid Prime game to feel. The muscle memory kicks in instantly. The new psychic abilities add a cool twist to the puzzles and boss mechanics. Graphically, it looks incredible, and exploring and scanning everything is still as addictive as ever. I'm really enjoying it overall. Now, Miles isn't that bad. He pops in occasionally, isn't super annoying, and Samus just gives him the classic stoic treatment. My only gripe is that he sometimes drops in purely for exposition, and that's not really the vibe of Metroid. The series thrives on mystery and environmental storytelling, so spoon-feeding the player feels just a bit off. I gloss over it, but I do wish they toned that down. And one more thing, I rarely say this, but the game feels kind of easy. After the difficulty of Metroid Dread, this one is super forgiving. I haven't died once, and it almost feels hard to die. Hopefully things ramp up as I go. Alright, that went longer than I expected, so let's get into the list. But let me be clear that this list isn't in any specific order, minus the last one. And if your favorite game isn't on the list, it just means I haven't had a chance to play it. I know there are a bunch of other amazing games, and I plan to play those one day as well. The backlog is real. Konami actually did it. They didn't just release Suikoden, they re-released it correctly. Both games look fantastic with updated visuals that clean things up without stripping away the original charm. The sprite work is great and definitely not smoothed over, which I hate. The environment is kind of 3D, but still with that charm of the original look, and the added quality of life changes made revisiting these games feel way smoother than expected. Fast menus, improved navigation, and modern conveniences kept me glued the entire time. Going back through these stories in HD just reinforced why these games have been talked about for decades. We were right to never shut up about them. We've always been right. What really hit me this time around was how well the stories still land. Suikoden 1 is tight, focused, and does an incredible job of pulling you into its political drama without wasting your time. And then Suikoden 2 comes in and absolutely turns it up to 11. The characters, the depth of the story, the world building is just incredible. Luca Blight is still one of the most terrifying villains in JRPG history, and the way the game handles war, loyalty, and friendship feels just as powerful now as it did back then. Recruiting the 108 Stars of Destiny is still addicting in that I swear I'll stop after one more character way, and you never did. The music also deserves its flowers. Hearing those tracks remastered hit me right in the nostalgia, but also reminded me how understated and effective the soundtrack really is. It knows when to step back and let moments kind of breathe, and when to punch you directly in the feelings. Combine that with the castle building, army battles, and the classic turn-based combat, and it's easy to see why Suikoden still stands out even in a modern JRPG landscape. Honestly, the Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remaster isn't just one of my favorite releases of 2025, it feels like a long overdue victory lap. This was the perfect way to bring back those classics, and I really hope it opens the door for more of them in the series. So please give us Suikoden 3 and the rest of them. If you somehow missed these games back in the day, this is the definitive way to experience them. And if you're like me and already love them, yeah, they're still amazing. Xenoblade Chronicles X finally breaking free from the Wii U feels surreal, especially since my Wii U decided to break on me last year. Like I was testing it and I pressed the power button and nothing. So yeah, I want to take it out back and smash it. Anyways, for years, this game lived in that weird limbo of one of Monolith Soft's best worlds that barely anyone played. Seeing it return as a definitive edition in 2025 feels like justice. From the moment I landed back on Mira again, the scale of this game shocked me as much as it did the first time I played it, if not harder now that it looks even more incredible with upgraded textures and resolution. So exploration is where Xenoblade X still completely clears most open world RPGs. Mira is massive, dangerous, and genuinely alien. You're encouraged to wander off the beaten path, get absolutely humbled by enemies you're not ready for, and slowly earn your place in the world. Every new region feels distinct, and the sense of discovery never really goes away, even after 50 hours. The definitive edition upgrades make a huge difference. Quality of life improvements smooth out some of the original game's rough edges, menus are far more readable, and the visual upgrade alone makes revisiting the world feel fresh. Combat still has that familiar Xenoblade rhythm, but it shines even more once everything starts clicking and builds come together. And then there's the skells. Getting your first mech is still one of the coolest moments in the series, and flying across Mira never gets old. Xenoblade Chronicles X remains one of Monolith Soft's most ambitious games, and this definitive edition finally gives it the spotlight it deserved for years. If you missed it the first time around, do yourself a favor and pick this up. Monolith Soft needs all the support we can give them. Alright, let me start things off by addressing the elephant in the room. I started this year by making a very bold statement. that 2025 was going to be the year of the Atelier for me. You see, I had never played this series before, but I'd always wanted to give it a real shot and see if it clicked. So like a fool I confidently pledged to play a bunch of Atelier games this year. Now fast forward to the end of 2025 and yeah, I failed you. I failed all of you. And ultimately, I failed myself.
I have failed you, Anakin. I have failed you.
Instead of the main games I swore I'd play, I only ended up finishing one, Atelier Yumia. But hear me out, because this one completely caught me off guard in the best way possible. Now going in, I expected that cozy, low-stakes Atelier experience everyone's always talking about. And while it absolutely delivers that, there's also a surprising amount of emotional depth here. Yumia is an instantly likable protagonist, and the game does a great job of tying its themes of memory, loss, and personal growth directly into both the story and the gameplay in a way that really works. The alchemy system is where things truly shine. I was honestly worried I wouldn't like it at first, but it ended up being deep without feeling too overwhelming. Once it clicks, it becomes dangerously addictive. Experimenting, optimizing, and slowly mastering the system feels incredibly rewarding, especially because crafting actually matters in both combat and exploration. Now, exploration is relaxed but incredibly rewarding. The world isn't massive for the sake of being massive, but it's filled with little details, secrets, and gathering routes that make wandering around feel purposeful. This honestly became one of my favorite parts of the game. It was almost therapeutic just running around uncovering secrets and tackling small puzzles. The warm, colorful environments paired with the soundtrack gives this game this cozy rhythm that makes hours just disappear. It's the definition of a perfect fall or winter game, which is why I talked about it in my Cozy Games video, and you should totally check that out too. What really sold me on Atelier Yumia though is how well it balances that cozy Atelier charm with a more grounded emotional story. It never loses its identity, but it clearly pushes the series forward in meaningful ways. By the time I finished it, this easily became one of my biggest surprises of 2025, which means, yeah, I probably need to put the Ryza games back on my pledge list for 2026. But maybe this time I'll stick to one of them. I don't need to make the same mistake twice. The Lunar Remastered Collection honestly feels like a small miracle. I've been a huge fan of the series ever since the PS1 remakes, and I still have my original working design physical edition. Some of my favorite pieces in my collection. But despite that love, Lunar has always been one of those series that's been ignored for years, outside of Lunar's Silver Star story, which somehow keeps getting remade and remastered on everything from the PSP to mobile. Lunar 2 has basically been left behind for some reason, and that has always sat wrong with me. Now, Lunar is one of those series that longtime JRPG fans never stop talking about, yet it's been stuck in re-release limbo for far too long. So getting both Silver Star Story and Eternal Blue preserved and cleaned up in one package finally feels like these games are being given the respect they deserve. From the moment the opening music hits, the nostalgia just kicks in. The kind that takes you back to simpler times and reminds you exactly why these games meant so much in the first place. Even if this is your first time playing the series, you'll have this sense of nostalgia for a time long gone. What surprised me most is how well Lunar's storytelling is even now. Alex and Hiro's stories still feel heartfelt. The characters' interactions are charming with the right amount of corny sprinkled in. Definitely not as corny as the Working Designs versions, and the themes of friendship, responsibility, and growing up hit harder as you get older. There's something refreshing about a JRPG that wears its heart on its sleeves and doesn't try to be overly complicated. It's just good old-fashioned fun, and I'm here for it. The remaster work itself strikes a real nice balance. The updated resolution cleans things up without losing that classic anime aesthetic and stays true to the original release. The quality of life tweaks make the experience smoother, and the music, thankfully, still sounds incredible. Combat remains simple, but it's snappy and satisfying with the ability to speed things up, and it never overstays its welcome. It's a reminder that not every JRPG needs a massive system overhaul to be enjoyed, but they could have at least updated the item management system, but it's totally fine. Now, what really makes the Lunar Remastered Collection special though is how comforting it feels to play. This is the kind of game you settle into, let the music wash over you, and just enjoy your journey. Whether you're revisiting it for nostalgia or experiencing it for the first time, this collection is an easy recommendation, and one of my favorite reminders in 2025 of why classic JRPGs still matter. So do yourself a favor and play them. Alright, there isn't much more I can say about this game that hasn't already been said. This became the game of 2025, and don't just take my word for it, take the fans, who gave it the Best Game Award at the Golden Joystick Awards, and it won 9 out of 11 awards it was nominated for at the Game Awards. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 completely swept the gaming landscape in a way we haven't really seen a JRPG do since probably Persona 5, and honestly, I'm here for it. This was a game I had my eye on for a while, but I still wasn't prepared for how hard it would hit once I finally sat down with it. Ever since seeing the trailer at the Xbox showcase back in 2024, I wanted this game to live up to the hype in my head. And somehow, it completely delivered. Right from the start, the game establishes a strong sense of identity. It's visually striking, emotionally heavy, seriously, prepare yourself, and just weird enough to immediately pull you in. What really surprised me though is how confident the storytelling is. The premise is haunting, the world is super unsettling, and the narrative keeps you in the dark, only offering you small pieces as you move forward. It trusts the player to connect the dots, which makes everything feel more personal and impactful. The themes of loss, inevitability, and fighting against time don't just land, they kind of just linger with you, leaving you staring at your TV long after you turned it off. Gameplay-wise though, Expedition 33 strikes a fantastic balance between style and substance. Combat feels smooth and deliberate with mechanics that stay engaging without ever becoming overwhelming. Every encounter feels intentional, pushing you to learn enemy patterns, dodge smarter, and master parries, which kept battles fresh all the way up to the end. By the time I finished it, it had firmly cemented itself as one of my favorite games of 2025. Now, if you want to hear me dive a bit deeper, I also did a spoiler cast over on Inferno Fox's channel, and I'll have that linked in the description, so please check that out. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe because he's awesome. And if you somehow haven't played it yet, what are you doing? Go play it right now. Go, wait, no, finish the video, but afterwards. Do it. I know this might be shocking, but yes, I played games this year that weren't JRPGs. I just haven't had time to talk about them, and honestly, this felt like the perfect place to gush, so here we are. Now, my history with Doom goes all the way back to playing it on a 486 DOS PC when I was a kid. I know, that severely dates me, but I'm basically a fossil at this point, so just roll with it.
It's been 84 years.
I was completely obsessed with Doom and every Doom clone I can get my hands on. I even played this Sailor Moon Doom clone back in the day. Anyone remember that? No? Just me? Okay, cool. Moving on. When id Software and Bethesda announced Doom: The Dark Ages, I was instantly sold. Medieval Doom? Say less. It honestly gave me Heretic vibes, which I absolutely loved back in the day. And somehow that's not even the best part. The game has giant robots. Giant freaking robots. I can't stress enough how cool that is. What really defines combat in Doom: The Dark Ages is how much it emphasizes defense turning into offense. The new shield completely changes the flow of battle, letting you block, parry, and immediately punish enemies instead of constantly sprinting and jumping away from danger. Combat feels heavier and more deliberate, with melee playing a much bigger role and encouraging you to get in close and commit to fights. At the same time, the ranged weapons still feel powerful and satisfying, but now they work hand in hand with timing, positioning, and reading enemy attacks. The result is a more tactical combat loop that still keeps Doom's trademark aggression. Every encounter becomes this brutal exchange where smart defenses open the door to absolute destruction. By the time I rolled credits, this felt like one of the most confident reinventions the series has ever pulled off. It respects everything that makes Doom great while still taking real risks, which isn't easy for a franchise this iconic. Doom is still Doom, even in the Dark Ages. Now, I definitely wanted to include an indie game on this list, and to me, Quartet was the standout of the year. You see, Quartet is one of those games that feel like it was made specifically for people who grew up loving classic JRPGs, but still want something that feels modern and thoughtful. From the start, it wears its inspirations proudly. It's got classic pixel art, turn-based combat, and a strong emphasis on party dynamics, but it never feels like it's just copying the past. Instead, it refines those ideas by creating an incredible set of characters with a distinct narrative that hooked me from the get-go. I was truly wowed by the character interactions and writing in this game. Quartet's story opens by letting you experience 4 distinct stories in any order, each centered around a different character whose life is upended in very personal ways. As the game unfolds, these paths start to collide, gradually forming a larger, tightly woven narrative with a total cast of 8 playable characters. Now, the story blends magic, war, and deeply human struggles, and it isn't afraid to explore dark territory, from personal tragedy to these large-scale atrocities. The steady pacing, shocking reveals, and balance of hope and despair make Quartet's story both gripping and unforgettable. Quartet's combat blends classic turn-based mechanics with smart refinement that keeps every fight engaging. From clear defined turn order and flexible party swapping to an action point system that rewards thoughtful pacing, elemental planning, and smart use of buffs, debuffs, especially during boss battles. Complementing that depth is one of the game's standout elements, its music. Tyler Meyer's soundtrack shifts seamlessly between quiet emotional pieces and powerful high-energy tracks that perfectly match the story's biggest moments. And discovering an actual barbershop quartet is a genuinely delightful touch that made the experience even more memorable.
If you're feeling stingy, my friend, yes, our friend.
Now, at the end of the day, Quartet feels like a love letter to classic JRPG design done right. It captures that nostalgic charm without feeling outdated. It delivers a battle system that's deep, satisfying, and consistently engaging. For an indie JRPG, it absolutely punches above its weight, and it ended up being my favorite indie game of 2025. So outside of my honorable mention of Metro Prime 4, this is the only Switch 2 game on my list. But that's not saying much because we honestly don't have a ton to talk about yet. That said, this is a perfect example of quality over quantity, because Donkey Kong Bananza is pure joy. The destruction mechanics hooked me immediately. It kind of scratched this very specific part of my brain that wanted to slowly tear through every level and destroy the environment until there was nothing there. Let's just say I spent way too much time doing that. I may have a problem. One of the things I absolutely love about Donkey Kong Bananza is its underground structure and sense of descent. Making your way deeper and deeper through massive sinkholes gives this game this really fun rhythm, where every drop into a new layer feels exciting and just a little unsettling. The interconnected design makes the world feel cohesive, constantly pushing you to see what's waiting in the next area. There are new characters, new mechanics, new surprises, and honestly, the payoff in those final layers was more than worth the journey. I was also genuinely surprised by how much I enjoyed the story in this game. Story isn't usually something Nintendo prioritizes in games like this, but I found myself getting attached anyway. Pauline quickly became more than just a side character, and watching her grow over the course of the game was genuinely satisfying. I always looked forward to what she'd say whenever the characters stopped to rest or anything like that. She's consistently charming, supportive, and actually enhances the journey instead of getting in the way. By the time I wrapped up Bananza, I was genuinely impressed by how confident it balances nostalgic familiarity with bold new ideas. It doesn't just rely on the legacy of earlier Donkey Kong games, it builds on it in ways that feels thoughtful and exciting. For a series that could have easily coasted on name recognition alone, Donkey Kong Bananza instead delivers one of the most enjoyable platforming experiences of the year. Now, this game holds a special place for me this year. It was the first game I finished on stream, and boy did I pick a good one. By good, I mean everyone watching me die over and over and over again, to the point we had a death counter. Let's say it got pretty high. And I probably shouldn't have made a challenge to take a drink every time I die because it got out of hand. But I had a blast with it despite its difficulty. It really harkens back to when I was a kid playing the first and second Ninja Gaiden games on the NES. I loved those games, but man, they were hard. Now, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is the kind of game that reminds you exactly what that series has always been about. Uncompromising challenge, razor-sharp combat, and a feeling that every victory is truly earned. This isn't a game that holds your hand or lets you coast. It pushes you into tight spaces, it throws these brutal enemies at you, and it demands that you earn every inch of the progress. If you come in looking for something easygoing, Ragebound will straight up humble you. But that's exactly why it works. Combat here is very precise. Now, enemies are aggressive and attack quickly, so you better have good reflexes. You quickly learn that reading patterns, choosing when to press the attack, and knowing when to back off are all part of the core rhythm. There's a real satisfaction in how you navigate tough fights, where you're utilizing dodging and perfect timing to slowly bring down your enemies. It's a system that rewards practice and punishes hesitation. Believe me, I know, and ask anyone who was on that stream. By the time I finished the game, I was genuinely impressed with how it kept up with the notorious difficulty of its predecessors. This is a game that knows exactly what it wants to be: fast, fierce, and rewarding for players who refuse to give up. It doesn't apologize for being hard though, it celebrates it. And for fans of skill-based action or ninjas, it delivers one of the most satisfying experiences of the year. Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles ended up being one of my favorite games of the year, because it reminded me just how formative this game was, not just for me, but for JRPGs as a whole. Now, Tactics was my gateway into strategy RPGs back on the PS1, and it completely reshaped how I thought about storytelling, combat, and player choice. Going into this remaster, I was excited but cautious. This game is sacred ground for a lot of people, myself included, and I'm happy to say this release understands exactly what made the original special and treats it with the respect it deserves. At its core, the story still feels less like a traditional RPG and more like a historical chronicle, a political drama about power, faith, betrayal, and the cost of loyalty. Following Ramza through the War of the Lions and watching alliances fracture and ideals crumble still hits just as hard decades later. What elevates it this time around is the presentation. The remaster leans into that storybook medieval tone with a beautifully stylized visual upgrade that feels like reading a sketched manuscript come to life. The added voice acting brings new emotional weight to scenes that were already powerful, making the Shakespearean dialogue easier to absorb, and the characters' conflicts feel even more human. Now, gameplay-wise, this is still Final Fantasy Tactics at its best. The job system, grid-based combat, and that near-limitless customization remains untouched, which is exactly how it should be. What has changed are the modern refinements that make this game easier to play today. Now you got widescreen support, faster menus, smoother camera controls, and quality of life improvements that respect your time without watering anything down. The fast forward option is a godsend for grinding. And yes, I absolutely lost hours to grinding again. Some things never change, honestly. The biggest surprise for me was how much I appreciated the new Chronicles system. Framing the game as a living historical record fits the narrative perfectly, helping track characters, events, and battles without breaking immersion. It makes a dense story far more approachable for newcomers, while giving longtime fans a new way to engage with Ivalice's history. This is now the best way to experience one of the greatest strategy RPGs ever made. And in a year stacked with incredible releases, returning to Ivalice like this reminded me exactly why Final Fantasy Tactics still stands among my all-time favorites, and why the Ivalice Chronicles easily earned its place as one of my favorite games of the year. Dragon Quest I and II HD 2D Remake ended up being one of my favorite games of 2025, and a big reason for that is how unexpectedly hard it hit me on a personal level. Now, Dragon Warrior on the NES was one of the very first JRPGs I ever played, which is wild to think about it now, and yes, saying that out loud makes me feel ancient.
I'm too old for this shit.
What makes this even more special is remembering that the series almost didn't survive in the West at all, and yet here we are decades later revisiting the very game that helped define the genre and shaped so many of us. What really pushed this remake into favorite of the year territory for me is that Square Enix didn't just do a straight one-to-one update. Dragon Quest I still tells that simple, timeless story of a lone hero reclaiming Alefgard from the Dragon Lord, but it's been expanded in meaningful ways. New characters, added dungeons, and extra story beats give it more emotional weight without losing its identity. Dragon Quest II, however, goes even further, introducing a full party, a larger world, and a stronger narrative focus. The addition of the Princess of Cannock as a fourth party member genuinely changes how the game plays, and the new story content, including entire areas like the underwater Merfolk Kingdom, adds depth while still feeling unmistakably Dragon Quest. And honestly, I think this Dragon Quest II remake is my favorite Dragon Quest right now. I liked it that much. Now, the presentation is another huge reason this remake stood out to me this year. The HD 2D style feels like nostalgia perfected. You know, the way your memory thinks these games looked, not how they actually did. The vibrant colors, dynamic lighting, and depth make every town and dungeon feel alive. The music hit me immediately, and hearing those classic themes fully realized, paired with the excellent voice acting that balances sincerity and charm, made the whole experience feel special. In the best way possible, it gave me strong Dragon Quest XI vibes. And then there's the gameplay. Pure Dragon Quest comfort food. It's familiar, reliable, and deeply satisfying, but modernized where it counts. Combat is faster, Dragon Quest I finally supports multi-enemy encounters, and both games benefit from new spells, abilities, and thoughtful quality of life improvements. Adjustable difficulty, battle speed options, quest tracking, and the recall system all make the experience smoother without stripping away the old school feel. By the time I finished both games, it was clear this wasn't just a nostalgia trip, it was a careful, respectful reimagining. In a year packed with incredible releases, Dragon Quest I and II still managed to stand out, and that's exactly why it became one of my favorite games of 2025. Alright, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was extremely excited for Digimon Story Time Stranger, and it ended up being one of my favorite games. And for me, that means a lot. Digimon Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory are two of the most underrated JRPGs I've ever played, and I've been shouting them from the rooftops for years. So going into Time Stranger, my expectations were high, and somehow it still exceeded them. This game doesn't just feel like a sequel, it feels like Digimon finally stepping back into the JRPG conversation in a meaningful way. The story is a big reason this game stuck with me. Mixing time travel with core human Digimon bond was a smart move, and the setup immediately hooked me. You are pulled between Tokyo and the digital world of Iliad, slowly unraveling how these worlds connect and why time itself is breaking down. The pacing takes its time early on, but that actually worked for me. As a Trails fan, I'm used to the quieter stretches that build towards bigger moments, and Time Stranger uses that same approach. By the time the story really opens up, I was fully invested in both the mystery and the cast. Presentation is where Time Stranger truly shines and where it separates itself from Cyber Sleuth. Gone are the bland, randomly generated hallways. Every dungeon here feels handcrafted and ties into the story. Exploring Tokyo and the digital world never felt repetitive, and I loved finding hidden paths by breaking objects or poking around off the main route. But the real stars are the Digimon themselves, with over 400 of them. The level of detail is honestly impressive. The models look great, attack animations are fully realized, and many Digimon even have voiced lines. It's the kind of care you can't help but appreciate, and it makes team building incredibly rewarding. And gameplay sealed the deal for me. Time Stranger takes the foundation of Cyber Sleuth and modernizes it in a smart way. Field encounters, pre-battle strikes, and the conversion system all make recruiting Digimon feel smoother and more satisfying. Digivolutions and de-Digivolutions remain the heart of the experience, but the new personality system adds a layer of depth without overwhelming you. Whether you want to min-max stats through the Digifarm or just play casually and enjoy the story, the game supports both playstyles. That balance is huge for me, and it's a big reason I kept coming back. Time Stranger truly became one of the best games of the year. It evolves everything Cyber Sleuth did right, trims away what didn't work, and delivers a JRPG that feels modern and full of heart. Luckily, this game has sold incredibly well, so I don't think I need to worry about it becoming a hidden gem like Cyber Sleuth, but I will always find an excuse to bring it up. So in a stacked year like 2025, earning a spot on this list says something. Okay, this is my last game on the list, but I wanted to end it with a bang. Trails in the Sky First Chapter Remake ended up being my favorite game of 2025. You see, it didn't just revisit a classic, it fundamentally changed how I recommend this series to people. For years, longtime fans have said, you should really start with Sky FC, and you know, they were right, but there was always an asterisk to that. The original release was dated, intimidating, and required asking newcomers to push past rough edges to get to the heart of what makes Trails special. It finally makes the best starting point and also the easiest one to recommend, and that alone makes it one of the most important releases of the year for me. What impressed me most is how respectful the remake is. This isn't a radical reimagining, it's a faithful retelling that understands why people fell in love with Sky FC in the first place. Liberl feels warm, vibrant, and alive in the way the original couldn't fully achieve with older hardware. Now notice how I said liberal and not liberal?
Very demure, very considerate, very approachable, very demure. Very natural, very approachable, very demure. Let's be mindful and remember to be demure, ladies.
The updated visuals perfectly match the grounded, character-driven tone of the story, and the world feels more inviting without losing its slow burn charm. Gameplay is another big reason this remake landed so high on my list. It takes the combat foundation from Daybreak and refines it while still preserving the challenge Sky is known for. Battles are tough but fair, and the difficulty options let you tailor the experience without any shame. If a boss is giving you trouble, the game gives you the tools to push forward. I love the ability to switch between action combat and turn-based encounters, which keeps dungeon crawling fast while letting you slow things down when it matters. What really seals this as my favorite though is the pacing and the story. I love the deliberate slow burn nature of the beginning of the game. It pulls you into Estelle and Joshua's world and feeds you your world building that will just make the later payoffs so much better. The loop of arriving in a city, learning its history, meeting its people, and taking on Bracer Guild requests before moving on is incredibly cozy and satisfying. Add in a simpler, more approachable orbit system and one of Falcom's best soundtracks with multiple music options to suit your preference, and you have a remake that is just filled with heart. Trails in the Sky First Chapter Remake isn't just a great remake. It's a defining release for the series and my favorite game of 2025. It honors the past, it welcomes new players, and it reminds me exactly why I love the Trails series so much. This is the blueprint for how you make a faithful remake. If this is where someone starts their journey, they're in very good hands. Alright, that was my best of 2025 list, and boy was that long. If you made it this far, congratulations. You survived quite a beefy episode because I couldn't make up my mind. Somewhere out there, my backlog is just sitting in a corner like, you thought this video was the end? No, it was not. But seriously, 2025 was an unreal year. Between long overdue remasters like Suikoden and Lunar, and absolute bangers like Clair, Obscur, and Trails in the Sky First Chapter Remake, this year reminded me of why I love this hobby so much. And more importantly, it reminded me of why I love making videos, because I get to share all of this with you. And you all listen. Hopefully. Tell me you're listening. Please, tell me. So I want to hear from you. What were your top games of 2025, and what did I miss that's about to get me roasted in the comments? I'm ready, be gentle, or don't, really. It builds character. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I'm still trying to hit that 2,000 subscriber goal. Now, alright, thanks for watching. I appreciate you as always, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.